The wind howled across the high plains of Wyoming like a freight train that forgot to stop, kicking up snow devils that danced in the headlights of a beat-up Ford Bronco rattling down a dirt road in the dead of night, February 1985. Inside, 29-year-old geologist Jake Harlan was white-knuckling the steering wheel, coffee long gone cold in the cup holder, eyes bloodshot from 3 straight days without real sleep. The radio spat static and the occasional country song that kept cutting out. He wasn't supposed to be here. Nobody was supposed to be here. Yellowstone was closed for the winter, gates locked, rangers gone home, but the seismographs back in Bozeman wouldn't shut up, and when the needles started doing the cha-cha at 3 a.m., Jake knew someone had to come look. He killed the lights a mile out, coasted in on momentum and prayer, parked behind a stand of lodgepole pines that smelled like vanilla and death. The moon was a thin blade overhead, just enough to turn the steam plumes rising from Norris Geyser Basin into ghosts. Jake pulled on every lair he owned, grabbed the flashlight, the portable seismometer, and the .357 his grandpa swore would stop anything short of God himself, and started walking. You felt it before you heard it. The ground had a heartbeat, slow, deep, like something enormous turning over in its sleep. Jake had been chasing earthquakes since he was 19, but this wasn't any quake he'd ever met. This was the mountain breathing. He crossed the boardwalk at Norris, boots crunching on frozen mud, past signs that read, "Danger, scalding water," like anyone needed the reminder. Porcelain Basin glowed faint turquoise even under snow, the pools hissing like dragons that hadn't decided whether to wake up yet. Jake knelt by Echinus Geyser, the big acid monster that only went off every couple decades now, and pressed the seismometer against the center crust. The needle pegged so hard it almost snapped. "Jesus H. Christ," he whispered, the words fogging in front of his face. That's when the ground lurched, one sharp kick like Thor dropped his hammer right under Jake's boots. Steam exploded from a dozen new vents, roaring up into the night sky. Somewhere behind him, a bull elk bugled in pure panic. Jake's flashlight beam caught the impossible, the entire crust around Echinus rising, lifting like a blister the size of a football field. He knew what that meant. He'd read the old reports, the ones nobody talked about outside closed rooms at the USGS. Hydraulic uplift, magma moving, the beast stirring after 640,000 years of dreaming. Jake ran. Not away, toward the truck, yeah, but also toward the payphone outside the closed warming hut because cell phones were still science fiction, and he had to tell someone, anyone, that the sleeking giant everyone swore was just fine was rolling over and opening one very pissed-off eye. He never made it to the phone. The second jolt hit like the planet got rear-ended by a comet. Jake went airborne, landed hard, tasted blood and snow. When he looked up, the sky was on fire, orange light pulsing from beneath the crust, painting the clouds the color of a fresh bruise. The sound came next, low, grinding, the kind of noise you feel in your bone marrow. Trees 100 yards away bent sideways like grass in a hurricane. And then, silence. Dead, total silence. Even the wind stopped. Jake lay there, staring at the sky, lungs burning, thinking, this is it. This is how the world ends. Not with a bang, not even with a whimper, just with one really bad morning in Wyoming. But it didn't end. Not that night. The ground settled with a sigh you could almost hear, like whatever had woken up decided 5 more minutes wouldn't kill anybody. Jake dragged himself into the Bronco, hands shaking so bad he dropped the keys twice, and floored itself toward West Yellowstone, praying the road hadn't turned into spaghetti. He made it out just before the Park Service slammed every gate and the military showed up with helicopters that didn't have markings. That was the night the Yellowstone Supervolcano almost introduced itself to the 21st century. And nobody, not a single damn soul outside a handful of terrified scientists, ever heard the real story. Until now.
Yo, before we dive any deeper into the rabbit hole that almost swallowed half of North America, do me a solid. Smash that like button if you're already hooked, subscribe to Dreamless Timelines, and turn on notifications because what's coming next will straight up melt your brain. And drop a comment that just says 640K so I know you're riding shotgun on this one. We're about to go places the History Channel is too scared to touch. Let's roll.
Jake Harlan didn't sleep for 4 days after that night. He sat in a windowless briefing room under the federal building in Bozeman while men in uniforms he didn't recognize asked him the same questions over and over. Did you see lava? Did you feel heat radiation? Did you take photographs? He hadn't. The camera had flown out of his hand somewhere around the second jolt. They took his notebook, his seismograms, even the 357. They made him sign something that looked like the Declaration of Independence had a baby with a horror movie contract. Then they handed him a cup of coffee and told him if he ever told anyone what really happened, he'd disappear into a hole so deep they'd need GPS on satellites to find his teeth. Jake nodded like a good boy, walked out into the Montana sunshine, got drunk at the first bar he found, and cried like a baby in the bathroom because he knew the monster had only hit the snooze button. Fast forward 3 years, 1988. Jake's rocking a sweet mullet and a government paycheck he never asked for, monitoring Yellowstone from a bunker that officially doesn't exist. The park's open again. Tourists taking selfies with bison, Old Faithful doing its thing every 90 minutes like clockwork. Everyone's happy to pretend the scare never happened. Except the data doesn't lie. The caldera, 70 by 45 miles of pure apocalyptic real estate, is inflating. Not a little, a lot. 3 inches a year in places. That's like watching a sleeping dude's chest rise before he sits up and punches you in the soul. Jake's boss, Dr. Evelyn Chen, chain smokes Virginia Slims and speaks in 4-letter acronyms. She corners him one night in the instrument room. Harlan, you want to be the guy who cried wolf when the wolf actually shows up chewing on Denver? No, ma'am. Then help me bury this thing so deep it never sees daylight. They cook the books. They tweak the algorithms. They tell the world Yellowstone is behaving normally. Meanwhile, the magma chamber, 40 miles wide and 5 miles under their feet, is filling up like a bathtub somebody forgot to turn off. And every night, Jake dreams the same dream. He's standing on the boardwalk at Norris and the ground just opens. No explosion, no fire, just a hole that swallows the sky. And in the hole, he sees every eruption that ever carved this continent, replaying like the sickest highlight reel you've ever seen. 2.1 million years ago, 1.3, then the big one, 640,000 years back, that punched a crater you can see from space and dropped ash in Florida thick enough to choke a brontosaurus. He always wakes up screaming. Now, let's rewind the tape, way back. Because to understand why Yellowstone is the geological equivalent of a loaded gun on the kitchen table, you gotta meet the family. Picture North America 17 million years ago. The continent's cruising along, minding its own business, when a hot spot punches up from the Earth's mantle like a blowtorch held against the bottom of a skillet. This thing is stupid hot, 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's got a bad attitude. First victim, a chunk of what's now Eastern Oregon. Boom. The McDermott caldera blows so hard it leaves a hole 25 miles wide and paints half the Pacific Northwest in glowing orange. The hotspot doesn't stop. It sits there, burning a hole straight through the crust while the North American plate slides southwest over it like a kid dragging his hand through a birthday cake. Every couple million years, the crust gets thin enough, pressure builds, and kaboom, another supervolcano. The trail of corpses stretches from Oregon clear across Idaho into Wyoming. Bruno Jarbidge, Twin Falls, Picabo, Heiss, and finally, the one we all know and fear, Yellowstone. 3 times this hotspot has gone full Michael Bay on the planet. The oldest big one, 2.1 million years ago, Huckleberry Ridge. That bad boy erupted 2,500 times more material than Mount St. Helens. Ash from that one shut down the sun from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Scientists found the tough layer in California, for crying out loud. Then 1.3 million years ago, Mesa Falls. Smaller, only 280 cubic kilometers of hellfire, but still enough to make dinosaurs reconsider their life choices, if any had been around. And the baby, the one everyone obsesses over, 640,000 years ago, Lava Creek, 1,000 cubic kilometers of magma. The explosion was so violent it collapsed a magma chamber 40 miles long, creating the caldera we now call Yellowstone National Park.
That ash fell as far as Texas, Mississippi, the California coast. They've found shards of Yellowstone glass in Gulf of Mexico sediments. The eruption column punched into the stratosphere and spread a blanket of death across half the continent. And here's the part that keeps geologists up at night. The time between those three monsters? Roughly 800,000 years, then 700,000 years. Do the math. We're overdue, fam. Way overdue. But hold up, before you go stocking your bunker with spam and AR-15s, the hotspot isn't done moving. It's still crawling northeast at about an inch a year. Right now, the blowtorch is under the northeast corner of the park, which is why Norris Geyser Basin has been throwing tantrums for the last 20 years, why the ground there rose 10 inches in a couple months back in 2003, why Grand Prismatic Spring sometimes looks like it's ready to launch into orbit. The beast is still alive, and it remembers. Back to Jake. 1992 now. He's 36, divorced, drinks too much Yellowstone whiskey, yeah, that's a real thing, and hasn't taken a real vacation in 8 years. The deformation surveys are getting harder to hide. GPS units, new toys back then, are screaming that the caldera's inflating faster than ever, 28 inches in some spots since '85. Evelyn Chen retires with a nervous breakdown nobody talks about. New boss is some Pentagon suit named Colonel Webb, who thinks science is just weather reports for bombs. Webb calls Jake into the secure room one October afternoon. Dr. Harlan, we have a problem. Understatement of the century. Satellite interferometry, brand new tech, just showed a bulge the size of Chicago rising under the sour cream bowl of Yellowstone Lake. The rate? 3 feet since spring. Jake's stomach drops into his boots. That's not a bulge, sir. That's a dome. Ring fractures are probably already propagating. We're looking at weeks, maybe months before... Can you stop it? Jake laughs, a sound like breaking glass. You don't stop Yellowstone, Colonel. You run. Webb leans forward, eyes flat like a shark's. Then we make sure nobody else runs. We control the narrative. We evacuate quietly, blame it on wildfires if we have to, but the public does not get a panic button. You understand me? Jake understands perfectly. He's being asked to help bury the biggest story in human history so the stock market doesn't crap itself. That night, he steals the hard drives. Every seismogram, every GPS point, every SNAR image that shows the caldera getting ready to do the biggest backflip since Krakatoa. He stuffs them into a backpack, drives to Bozeman, mails copies to 3 universities under fake names, and disappears. They find his Bronco 2 days later at the bottom of Hebgen Lake with the driver door open and no body. Officially, Dr. Jacob Harlan committed suicide. Unofficially, he's been living under the name Mike Thompson in a one-room cabin outside Cody ever since, watching the park from a distance, waiting for the day the ground finally says, time's up. And every year on February 13th, the anniversary of the night he ran for his life, he drives to the east entrance, parks just outside the gate, and listens. Because he swears sometimes when the wind is right and the moon is thin, he can still hear it breathing.
We're barely 20 minutes in, guys, and we haven't even hit the really crazy stuff yet. The declassified files, the Native American prophecies that called this thing by name centuries before white guys showed up, and the secret evacuation plans that involve trains most people don't know exist. And the one time in 2004 when the magma came within 3 miles of the surface and the government almost pulled the trigger on Operation Exodus. If you're still here, you're the real ones. Drop another comment that says I'm still here so I know who's strapped in for the full 2.5-hour ride. We're about to go full send into the stuff they'll never teach you in school. And if you haven't subscribed yet, fix that right now. Dreamless Timelines is the only place you're going to hear this version. Unfiltered, no sponsors, no corporate muzzle. Just the truth, raw and uncut. Let's keep going. The next chapter is where shit gets biblical. Cody, Wyoming, February 13th, 2004. 19 years to the day since Jake almost became the first casualty of the end of the world. Mike Thompson, same guy, different name, more gray, less hope, sits on a bar stool at the Silver Dollar Bar, nursing a Coors because whiskey stopped doing the job years ago. The TV above the liquor bottles is running local news. Record snowpack, wolves killing cattle, some tourist got too close to a bison again. Normal bullshit. Then the screen glitches, cuts to a technical difficulties card for 5 full seconds.
When it comes back, the anchor looks like she's been crying. We interrupt your regular programming. The National Park Service has closed Yellowstone National Park indefinitely due to unusual geothermal activity. The bar goes dead quiet. Even the jukebox shuts up mid-Toby Keith. Mike feels it in his teeth before the cell phone in his pocket vibrates. Burner phone, one number in it. He steps out into the -10 air and answers. Thompson? It's happening, says a voice he hasn't heard in 12 years. Female, shaking. 3 miles, Mike. The roof aspect is 3 goddamn miles thick now. They just lost half the seismic network at once. It's not noise, it's the cap failing. It's Sarah Park, little Sarah from the old bunker days, the grad student who used to sneak him Snickers when the brass wasn't looking. She's the chief scientist at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory now, and she sounds like someone who just watched God load a shotgun. Mike's voice comes out gravel. How long? Days. Maybe a week if we're lucky, and Jesus loves us extra. They're spinning up Exodus tonight. Rails are hot. They're gonna try and move 8 million people before the ash hits the Mississippi. Mike looks west. The Absaracas are black silhouettes against a sky full of stars, and somewhere behind them the caldera is waking up pissed. He hangs up, walks to his truck, and starts driving toward the park, because some things you just have to see with your own eyes. Meanwhile, 300 miles south, in a bunker under Cheyenne Mountain that officially only exists in conspiracy forums, Operation Exodus goes live. You never heard of it because it worked once, and nobody wants to admit it almost had to work twice. Exodus was cooked up in the late 70s by a guy named Curtis Hale, who had nightmares about Yellowstone after reading a classified USGS report over too much bourbon. Plan was simple and terrifying. If the big one starts inflating past the point of no return, the federal government quietly moves 20% of the US population east of the Mississippi in under 10 days without telling them why. They built it into Amtrak schedules. Certain freight routes suddenly get priority maintenance that clears tracks for 200-mile-per-hour passenger trains nobody knows exist. School districts in Iowa and Illinois get weird memos about extended spring break drills. The Mormon Church in Utah gets asked to update their food storage numbers just in case. And FEMA caches millions of body bags in warehouses labeled flood relief supplies. And nobody notices because Americans are really good at not noticing weird shit when the Super Bowl is on.
2004. The bulge under Yellowstone Lake has grown a new lobe. Seismic tomography, fancy word for underground ultrasound, shows the magma chamber is now 35% molten. That's the red line. Above 40%, all bets are off. Sarah Park stands in the YVO control room at 2:14 a.m., watching real-time GPS data as the ground over Sour Creek Dome jumps 4 inches in 40 minutes. The room smells like burnt coffee and panic sweat. She makes the call. At 2:37 a.m., the President of the United States is woken up in the White House, handed a folder marked Eyes Only Volcanic Winter, and asked one question: do we pull the trigger? He signs. By dawn, trains that haven't moved since the Cold War are rolling out of hidden sidings in Nebraska and Kansas. By noon, every Walmart east of the Rockies gets a mysterious inventory replenishment order for canned goods that empties regional warehouses in 6 hours. By nightfall, the 101st Airborne is quietly taking up positions around rail hubs in Montana and Wyoming for training exercises. And Yellowstone? Still pretending to be a national park. Old Faithful erupts right on schedule at 8:12 p.m. Tourists cheer. Nobody notices the water column is 20 feet taller than normal and the color of weak coffee. Mike Thompson gets as far as the east entrance before a Black Hawk drops out of nowhere and 2 very serious men in unmarked camis zip-tie his hands and throw him in the back. They fly him straight to Mammoth Hot Springs, land on the lawn of the old Fort Yellowstone, and march him into a conference room that used to be a cavalry barracks. Sarah's there, older, thinner, eyes like someone who hasn't slept since the Clinton administration. So is Colonel Webb, now a 2-star general with less hair and more medals. And sitting at the head of the table is a woman Mike has only seen on TV, the Secretary of the Interior herself. She doesn't waste time. Dr. Harlan, using the name he buried in Hebgen Lake, we're about to evacuate half the western United States, and we need you to help us lie to the rest of the planet for 72 hours. After that, it won't matter. Mike laughs so hard the zip ties cut his wrists. You people still think you can put this genie back in the bottle? Lady, the bottle's already in orbit. Sarah slides a satellite photo across the table. It's Yellowstone Lake, taken 6 hours ago. The entire northern half of the lake is steaming like a witch's cauldron, and there's a perfect circular dome rising out of the water the size of Manhattan. That's new, she says quietly. It wasn't there yesterday. Mike stares at it and feels something inside him break and reform into something colder. He looks up. What do you want from me? We want you to go on television tomorrow morning, the secretary says, and tell America that everything is fine, that this is normal hydrothermal unrest, that people should stay calm and enjoy their vacations. Mike laughs so hard the zip ties cut his wrists. And you if I say no? General Webb finally speaks. Then we shoot you for desertion in wartime and find someone else who will. Mike leans back. Define wartime. Webb doesn't blink. The moment the president invoked the Insurrection Act at 4:11 a.m. this morning. Mike looks at Sarah. She won't meet his eyes. He nods slowly. Give me a shower, a razor, and a stiff drink. I'll be your dancing monkey. They put him up in the old officers' quarters under guard. He stares out the window at the travertine terraces glowing under floodlights and thinks about the Shoshone stories his grandpa used to tell, how the world ends in fire that comes from a hole in the ground guarded by spirits who only let the worthy pass. At 3 a.m., the building shakes so hard the windows rattle in their frames. Not an earthquake, something deeper, a roar you feel in your liver. Sarah bursts in without knocking, hair wild, barefoot in pajamas. It's started, she whispers. Steamboat Geyser just went off. Biggest eruption ever recorded, 400 feet, and it's not stopping.
Steamboat, the tallest geyser in the world, hasn't had a major eruption since 2018 in our timeline. In this one, it's been dormant since 1990. When Steamboat finally shuts up 38 hours later, it will have thrown more water and steam than every previous eruption combined, and the sound will be recorded on seismographs in Canada. But right now, at 3:02 a.m. on February 15, 2004, the ground under Mammoth cracks open for the first time in human memory, and a brand new fumarole starts screaming like a jet engine. Mike and Sarah stand on the porch and watch the end of the world begin in slow motion. And that, my friends, is when the cameras finally caught something they couldn't edit out. Because at 3:07 a.m., live on a ranger's body cam that was accidentally broadcasting to a public webcam, the entire Yellowstone caldera lights up from below like the world's biggest jack-o'-lantern. The footage goes viral before anyone can pull the plug. Within 30 minutes, #Yellowstone is trending worldwide. Within an hour, every news chopper west of the Rockies is racing toward the park. Within 2 hours, the secret is out, the trains are rolling, and 8 million people are about to learn that "leave now" can be a text message from a government that never thought they'd have to send it. But here's the wild part, the part nobody saw coming. Not the Pentagon, not the scientists, not even the doomsday preppers with their bunkers full of freeze-dried lasagna. Yellowstone blinks. We're 1 hour deep now, guys. The ride only gets darker from here. If your palms aren't sweating yet, they're about to. Hit that subscribe button, smash the bell, and comment "blink" if you're still breathing after that last twist. Because next, we're going inside the caldera on the day the sky caught fire and the day the mountain decided maybe, just maybe, humanity deserved one more sunrise. Keep your seatbelt on. We're going full throttle. February 15th, 2004, 5:47 a.m. The sky over Yellowstone is no longer a sky. It's a lid. A low, bruised orange lid of steam and sulfur haze that presses down on the caldera like God slammed a pot over the biggest stovetop on Earth. The temperature has jumped 30 degrees in 4 hours.
Snow is melting so fast the Firehole River is already out of its banks, carrying entire pine trees like matchsticks. Mike Harlan, back in his real name now because who gives a damn anymore, stands on the roof of the Mammoth Hotel with Sarah Park and a National Guard lieutenant who looks about 19 and is praying in Spanish under his breath. They're watching the north end of the park glow like the gates of hell just opened a franchise. Steamboat Geyser is still going, a white column punching half a mile into the toxic sky, roaring loud enough to rattle teeth. Every few minutes, another geyser joins the chorus. Giant, Grand, Castle, Riverside, until the entire upper, midway, and lower basins are erupting in perfect, terrifying unison. It's like the park decided to play every instrument at once at maximum volume. Sarah's radio crackles with voices that sound like they're from another planet. Yellowstone Lake is boiling in the West Tum. Repeat, boiling. Surface temp, 190 Fahrenheit and rising. Norris is gone. Whole basin just dropped 30 feet. We have lava fountaining out of new vents, 100-footers. Helicopter down at Heart Lake, rotor blades melted mid-air. Mike lights a cigarette with shaking hands. The smoke tastes like pennies. Sarah turns to him, eyes red from crying or acid gas, hard to tell. She says, "It's not the big one. Not yet. Magma stalled at 2 miles. The roof held, barely, but the pressure's still building. We bought hours, maybe a day." Mike exhales smoke toward the orange sky. "Hours? That's what you're selling me?" She laughs, a broken sound. "Could be worse, could be minutes." Below them, the first wave of evacuees are pouring out of the park on anything with wheels. West Yellowstone looks like the fall of Saigon on steroids. RVs dragging snowmobiles, horse trailers with bison in the back, Subarus with kayaks on the roof doing 70 on icy roads, sirens everywhere. A Greyhound bus full of Japanese tourists just slid into a ditch and nobody even stops.
CNN is live now. Chopper feed from 10,000 feet, because anything lower cooks the camera. The anchor's voice keeps cracking. Unprecedented hydrothermal explosion. Officials urging calm. No word yet on casualties. Mike snorts. Calm, right. Then the lieutenant's radio screams something in Spanish that makes him cross himself twice. He looks at Sarah, pale as milk. "Ma'am, they just lost Sour Creek Dome. Whole thing collapsed inward. They're calling it a pit crater, half a mile wide and filling with lava." Sarah closes her eyes. Mike can actually hear her heart break. That's when the mountain does the thing nobody predicted. The roaring stops. Dead silence, like someone hit mute on the apocalypse. Every geyser shuts off at once. Steam vents hiss and die. Even the wind stops. The temperature plummets 20 degrees in 30 seconds. Snow starts falling again. Big, fat flakes drifting through the orange haze like the world's most sarcastic apology. Mike feels it in his bones first. Pressure drop. Massive. Like the planet just exhaled. Sarah's eyes snap open. Oh no. Mike grabs her arm. What just happened? She's already running for the stairs. The cap resealed. Magma found a deeper path. It's going lateral. It's looking for the weakest spot in the ring fracture. Mike follows, boots slipping on ice. English Sarah. It's not blowing up. It's blowing out, sideways. We just turned Yellowstone into a shield volcano the size of Rhode Island. They burst into the command post. Screens show thermal cameras going berserk along a 20-mile line from Madison Junction to Old Faithful to West Tum. The ground is splitting open in glowing red cracks, lava seeping out like blood from a gut wound. But it's quiet lava, no explosions, just the mountain bleeding molten rock at 2,000 degrees, slow and unstoppable. Sarah grabs a red phone and screams into it. "Divert Exodus west! Repeat, west! The Ashgret just dropped 90%, but we're about to lose the entire southwest quadrant of the park under a lava field." Mike watches the screens and feels something he hasn't felt in 20 years. Awe. Because Yellowstone isn't trying to kill the world today. It's remodeling. By noon, the flows are moving 5 miles an hour, slow enough that rangers on snowmobiles are actually outrunning them, herding elk and tourists ahead like the world's most metal cowboys. One guy live streams it on a flip phone. Grainy as hell, but it's the first viral video of the eruption.
He's laughing and crying at the same time, yelling, "Follow the bison! They know the way!" The lava crosses the Grand Loop Road at 2:14 p.m., melts the asphalt like butter, keeps going. Old Faithful gets cut off, surrounded on three sides by glowing rivers. The geyser itself keeps erupting right up until the moment a tongue of Pohoyo licks the boardwalk and turns it into glowing toothpicks. Tourists watch from the rooftop of the Old Faithful Inn live on every network, cheering every time the geyser beats the lava by 30 seconds. It's the most American thing ever filmed. Mike and Sarah are in a Blackhawk skimming the treetops at 150 knots, heading for the north entrance because that's still open for now. The Army has set up a triage center in the high school gym. Someone's handing out chili and bourbon. A country band is playing Sweet Home Alabama on a flatbed truck like it's the 4th of July. Mike steps off the chopper and a kid, maybe 10, runs up, hands him a crayon drawing, stick figure Yellowstone with a smiley face and the words, "Thank you for saving us." Mike loses it right there on the tarmac.
Sarah finds him an hour later sitting on a curb, staring at the drawing. She sits down, bumps his shoulder. "We didn't save anybody. The mountain just changed its mind." Mike wipes his face, or it remembered something. What? He looks north, where the glow on the horizon is still visible, painting the belly of the clouds red. Shoshone call it the place where hell bubbled. They say the fire spirit down there gets angry when people forget to say thank you. Maybe we finally said it loud enough. Sarah snorts. "You going native on me, Harlan?" Maybe. Or maybe the planet's got a sense of humor after all. They sit there while the biggest volcanic eruption in recorded human history keeps pouring out of the side of Yellowstone like a slow-motion car crash. And for the first time in 20 years, Mike Harlan sleeps without dreaming. The lava keeps flowing for 39 more days. It buries 120 square miles of the park under a sheet up to 400 feet thick. Old Faithful, the Inn, Grant Village, everything south of Madison, gone. The new caldera boundary is redrawn in glowing rock. Yellowstone Lake drains partially into the new fissure, becomes a steaming lagoon ringed by black lava beaches that look like Hawaii on steroids. Ashfall is minimal, a dusting as far as Denver, nothing more. No global winter, no extinction event, just the biggest, slowest, most photogenic natural disaster in American history. And somehow, zero human fatalities. Not one. The bison lead the way out. People follow the bison. The bison become national heroes. There's a Super Bowl ad 2 years later with the CGI bison wearing a cape. Congress creates the new Yellowstone National Lava Field and argues for a decade about whether to reopen it to tourists. They do, eventually. Black glass rafting on the fire hole becomes the hottest ticket in Wyoming. Mike and Sarah get medals they never wear and book deals they turn down. They buy a little ranch outside Livingston, raise horses, and never talk to reporters again. Every February 15th, they drive to the new overlook above the lava field, sit in the truck with the heater on, and watch the steam devils do their nightly ballet. Mike always says the same thing. She blinked. Sarah always answers, and we're still here. And somewhere under half a mile of fresh basalt, the hotspot keeps moving northeast, 1 inch a year, patient as geology, dreaming its dreamless dream, waiting. But not today. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark, fam. One more segment left. The one nobody's ever put together in public. The declassified memos, the native prophecies that named the exact year, the secret recordings from inside the magma chamber, and the real reason the mountain let us live. If you've made it this far, you're family now. Drop "she blinked" in the comments so I know you finished the ride. Smash that subscribe button like you mean it, because Dreamless Timelines is about to drop the final piece that ties 17 million years of fire into one sentence that will keep you up for weeks. We're not done yet. Turn it up. Last lap. Full send. 10 years later, February 15th, 2014. The new overlook above the lava sea, they actually call it that now, black glass and frozen ropes of Pohoeho, glowing under floodlights like the surface of an alien planet.
Tour buses roll in from 3 states just to watch the Steam Devils do their nightly ballet. Kids sell glow sticks and I Survived the Blink t-shirts for $20 a pop. Somebody built a brew pub called the Ring Fracture that serves a 10% ABV Imperial Stout named 640 in matte black cans with a red ember on the label. Mike and Sarah are up there again. Same ritual, same beat-up Silverado, same thermos of bad coffee. They're in their 50s now, gray at the temples, moving a little slower, but the eyes still sharp. Mike's got a manila folder on the dash that wasn't there any other year. Sarah eyes it like a rattlesnake. You sure about this? He nods once. 10 years is long enough. They declassified the last batch last week. Figured tonight's the night the world finally hears the rest. She pops the thermos, pours 2 cups, hands him one. Start with the one that still gives me nightmares. Mike opens the folder, pulls out a single sheet of onion skin paper with the presidential seal and the words Top Secret Umbra Yellowstone Exord 0402 stamped across the top in faded red.
He reads it out loud to the empty parking lot, voice carrying over the hiss of distant steam vents. 15 February 2004, 0311 MST. Seismic array YST-12 detected coherent infrasound pulse at 0.7 Hz originating from depth 28 kilometers directly beneath Sour Creek Dome. Pulse duration 47 seconds. Amplitude consistent with acoustic resonance of fluid-filled cavity. Translation: the magma chamber itself produced a tone audible only to the planet. Immediately following pulse, all hydrothermal eruptive activity ceased within 0.9 seconds park-wide. Roof subsidence halted. Lateral intrusion initiated along predicted ring fracture azimuth 228 degrees. Probability of VEI-8 transition fell from 87% to less than 4% within 6 minutes. No current model explains the synchronization event. Mike folds the paper, tucks it away. Sarah stares at the lava field glowing below them. They called it the Valentine's Day chord, 47 seconds of pure tone that shut the whole damn thing down like flipping a switch. The seismologists still won't publish because they can't explain it without sounding insane. Mike pulls the second document. This one's handwritten. Shoshone Elder scrawl on lined notebook paper. Dated 1898. My grandfather heard it from his grandfather, who heard it from the old ones before the horse came. They said when the fire under the great hot ground grows too angry, the grandmothers who live in the deep stone will sing one song, one time only, to calm the child. If the people above are listening with good hearts, the child will sleep again. If not, the song never comes, and the world burns clean. The year will be marked by 2 winters with no summer between, and the moon will bleed on the day of hearts. That is the only warning you will get. Mike looks up. 2003 and 2004, 2 of the coldest winters on record back to back, and February 14, 2004, total lunar eclipse, blood moon, Valentine's Day. Sarah's voice is barely a whisper. They sang. Mike nods slow. They sang. He reaches into the glove box, pulls out a flash drive in a little plastic case labeled in Sharpie, YVO Acoustic Array RAW, 02, 15, 2004, 03, 11, 22. He plugs it into the truck's ancient stereo, hits play, turns the volume all the way up. For the first 3 seconds, there's nothing but faint hiss. Then it comes. A sound that isn't a sound. A chord so low it's more vibration than tone. 3 notes braided together like whale song played on cathedral organ pipes the size of skyscrapers. It's beautiful and heartbreaking and terrifying all at once. You feel it in your sternum, in your teeth, in the marrow of your bones. Feels like the earth itself is crying and laughing and forgiving you all at the same time. 47 seconds exactly. Then silence. Sarah is crying without making a sound. Mike's got one hand over his mouth, like he's trying to hold something in. When it ends, the only noise is the wind and the distant hiss of steam on new lava. Mike finally speaks, voice rough. That's why she blinked. Something down there, call it grandmothers, call it Gaia, call it whatever the hell you want, looked up at 8 billion screaming monkeys who'd spent a century poisoning the sky and said, not yet. They still might figure it out. Sarah wipes her face with her sleeve. One song, one chance. Mike looks out at the black glass sea catching the moonlight. And we're still here. He reaches into the back seat, pulls out a small cedar box, opens it. Inside is a single chunk of obsidian, fresh, still sharp, shot through with tiny bubbles like it captured the moment the world exhaled. He hands it to Sarah. Happy Valentine's Day, kid.
She takes it, turns it over in her fingers, and starts laughing through the tears. Below them, a new steam vent opens on the lava field, a perfect white plume rising straight up into the freezing Wyoming night like a signal fire. Mike raises his coffee cup to the darkness. Thank you, he says, clear and loud enough for anything listening 28 kilometers down to hear. The wind shifts, carrying the faint smell of sulfur and vanilla from the lodgepole pines that somehow survived on the edge of the new flows. And for one perfect moment, the heartbeat under the caldera is slow, steady, content, dreamless. We're done. 2.5 hours. Every classified page, every whisper, every tear, every impossible second of the day the world almost ended and got a love song instead. If you're still here breathing after that final chord, you know what to do. Drop "they sang" in the comments. Hit the like button so hard YouTube thinks it's a glitch. Subscribe to Dreamless Timelines. Turn on the bell, because this channel is the only place you'll ever hear the full, unfiltered truth. And the next time you're driving across Wyoming under a big sky and you feel that little thump in your chest for no reason, that's them. Still watching, still listening, still giving us one more sunrise. This is Dreamless Timelines, signing off from the edge of the fire. See you in the next one, fam. And remember, say thank you. Every damn day. Fade to black.